Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, September 28, 2022. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. We are meeting at 32 Leslie O. Johnson Road, Gloucester High School. We have students who have been on the nominating committee organizing that with us today. We have Gary Frisch, our CFO, Greg Bach, our Assistant Superintendent, Principal Matt Fusco, Principal Gascarello, Superintendent Levis, Laura Leeson, School Committee member, Melissa Texera Prince, School Committee member, myself, Kathy Clancy, member, and Keith Minio is joining us on Zoom here. So with that said, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. I will state that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners, and I ask you to join me in this.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Berga, whose mom passed away, Adrian Berga, and we will be doing a moment of silence.
So also want to recognize acknowledge the passing of beloved staff member Patrice Palmisano, who was one of our food service workers at Plum Cove. As Principal Dan Jewett wrote to his community, there are many quiet heroes who help our schools run, and Patrice was certainly one of them. Every morning and every afternoon, Patrice greeted students with warmth and kindness. She made Plum Cove a better place because she knew how to make children feel like they belong. Students loved Patrice as much as she loved them, and our hearts certainly go out to Patrice, his family, and her countless friends. So if we get a moment of silence to recognize Patrice and Mayor Berger's mother. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first item of business is oral communication. If there is anybody in attendance who would like to speak for oral communications, now is your opportunity. And the rules for oral communication are the public shall have the opportunity at every school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. The school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. So if there is anyone in attendance that would like to speak under oral communication, now is your opportunity. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to recognitions.
We'll recognize the nominations committee later.
Yes.
So we're going to recognize it now.
Right.
They deserve a lot of recognition. We'll get to that. They'll have it for us soon. Anyone else?
Everyone, every day.
It's true.
Okay, next item of business is the Gloucester High School Student Advisory Council, and with us we have Ella Zindel, who is joining us for the first time, right? Thank you for coming. It's nice to see you. think she's still on mute. Maria, can you unmute her?
No.
Do you see in the bottom left corner the mute button? When you roll your cursor over the bottom left corner of your screen, it's the microphone and the video camera. Just gotta click it and the line will go away. You got it?
Try speaking now, Ella.
No.
Raise the volume.
Is there anything? I still can't hear you. Ella, on the top of your keyboard, do you have icons that look like a speaker on the top that might be pressed to be muted?
She put her to keep on trying.
Maria, could she log out and go in as an attendee and let you unmute her that way?
We should try that. We should try it. It'll only work if it's on our end as opposed to her end.
So can you move her to an attendee?
I think what might be best is for her to call in,
Yeah.
like a phone attendee, and we can just have her
She said
speak.
she'd do that.
She did. Okay.
Will you call in, Ella?
There we go.
We'll keep an eye out for you. Okay. We're doing that. We're going to go through a quick order of business, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to remove? Seeing none.
I move that we consent agenda. Second.
Maria, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes. Carries 4-0. Okay. And Maria, if you could keep an eye out,
Yeah, I will.
I'll have to take her after the school discussion. Okay, so deliberations and educational issues, superintendent's report. I will turn it over to Superintendent Munns.
Thank you. And so the way things are going to work tonight is that in a moment, Ms. Pascal will start showing the slideshow. I'll introduce what we're doing. No, I'm introducing what we're doing now. I'll sort of set the scene in terms of just reminding people where we've been on the process of naming. And then Mr. Fusco will do a grand opening and introduce us to what we're the kids and that sort of thing. And then Pascal will go through some data, and then our student nominations committee will reveal the 4 finalists. Okay, so slideshow. So as folks know, we're building a brand new school, which is exciting and awesome. I was lucky enough to get a tour inside with a bunch of folks a couple weeks ago. And I think the students have been inside. The students inside. Have you all been inside the school?
Some of them.
Some of you. Excellent. That's great. So I just want to sort of get us, remind folks, because while the school committee's been paying close attention, a lot of us haven't. So the intention of the process, which was approved by the school committee in December 2021, was to be inclusive, so provide numerous opportunities for members of the community to chime in and give input all along the way. And we've done that numerous ways, I'll talk about in a second. Also, be inclusive in terms of the students at the school and make sure they played really a significant leadership role, which you will see the results of. Be transparent, so make sure that the community knew and was well aware of the process we were using over the last many months, and make sure the process was followed as initially planned and approved. And then make sure our communication outreach helped inform people, include them, and also allow them to engage in the process. We wanted to recognize and support the core values and the history, and really importantly, coming together of the two school communities. I already mentioned having students deeply involved in the process, in this case, really leading the process. And then the last piece of the school committee makes the final decision. In terms of policy, they're the ones who have the responsibility for naming school buildings. So while we have a community process, an open process, led by students, ultimately the committee makes a decision. And tonight really signals the passing over the responsibility from all of you, students, the nomination committee, to the school committee. That's great. Just in terms, okay, sorry, just in terms of so far what's been done, I mentioned December 2021, the school committee adopted the process for naming the school. In February 2022, the nominations committee was created, and it includes current and past students from EGS and VETS, so folks who last year were 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders at the two schools, now are 4th and 5th graders at the two schools, 6th graders. And also a couple of high school students and also current O'Malley students from last year, or
Two O'Malley
two O'Malley students, two high school and a couple high school students. So all who attended either East Gloucester events. In April 2022, with the work done by the nominations committee, we did a lot of outreach to the community, email, website, social media. The Gloucester Daily Times reported on it a number of times, and they collected 71 nominations. 51 of those were separate names, distinct separate names. In June and August, the students reviewed all that input that they got about the names. So the community was able to get input on those names. I'm sorry. The students reviewed all the names and assessed them using the criteria we mentioned earlier. And in May and June, and then in August, they made final decisions on the 10 semifinalists. They had summer vacation in between there. That was what the gap is. Okay, we can make them work in July. And then in August, late August, they announced the 10 semifinalists, and we've been collecting a lot of input since then. And we'll go from here in terms of how they consider that input, what the input was, and then the decisions on the finalists that they're recommending to you.
All right, so this is my part here. So hi, everyone. This is an amazing day. Today marks the culmination of a lot of hard work from our wonderful naming committee. Committee made up of veterans in East Gloucester staff and students spanning the elementary, middle, and high schools. We are all very excited to present to you the final 4 possible names for our gorgeous state-of-the-art school. So what's in a name? Well, there's a lot that goes into naming a school, as you will soon see. And we would like to thank Superintendent Lummis for providing us with clear direction and path for our important work. Our students learned a lot about community outreach and the passion and love this community has for Gloucester and its schools. I'm pretty sure that I speak for all the adults who are a part of this naming committee that these students were awesome to work with. They attended all sessions, worked hard on presentations, and asked lots and lots of thoughtful questions along the way. Overall, it was a great experience with a great group of kids. After tonight, their work is done. And now it goes over to the school committee. Good luck. As you begin to choose the final name. And I just hope that you can join me all in just applauding the hard work that these kids have done.
So the video we're hoping will work, but we're gonna see if the audio works on Zoom. No. I do. It's not working. Our website.
Oh, it's
It is on the website.
So can we go to the website? Okay.
It's about, we're having trouble with someone showing it and feeding the audio through that computer. So that makes sense.
So even from the website.
Yeah, we can show it, but it's the audio.
I can do that.
Yeah.
But anyone at home can go to the Gloucester Public Schools
We have a
website.
solution.
So you're back on? Okay. So that video went out when we were first looking for names, but we wanted to recognize the wonderful committee and how much work they've done by re-showing it. Okay, so as Superintendent Lemon said, we had 71 nominations and 51 separate nominations when we first asked, and I just wanted to remind everybody what we were seeking. So on the form that was put out and the flyer that was put out originally, the new elementary school that combines the East Gloucester and Veterans Memorial School needs a name, and we need your help. Please submit a suggested name by using this form. This was on the Google form, obviously. Please be mindful that the school committee voted that the school will not be named after an individual. We are looking for names that represent both EGS and veterans and help bring the two schools communities together. We asked specific questions of what they would like to name the new school, why they would like to name the new school, their suggested name. We asked for them to explain how it would represent the values and or history of Gloucester Public Schools or Gloucester. And we also asked how this name would help the students, families, and staff connect with the school and build at one community. So that was our goal. After the committee narrowed it down to 10 finalists, semi-finalists, we put out a second Google form for feedback. We were not asking for a vote. We were asking for people to choose a name and give feedback about a name. So some of the feedback was positive, some was very neutral, and some was not positive. They didn't like a name, and they would let us know that.
Amy, can you just wait? I just want, Ella, we know that you're back, and we will get to you right after this particular topic if you have time to hold on, and if you don't, we totally understand. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can hear you now, Ella, so that's good news to wait. So from the input, the form, we had 585 online responses. And each response, someone could submit a response for up to 3 names. So it is more than that. One of the questions we asked is who was responding. So we had 148 students give their input and 74 staff, 183 family members, 188 community members, 106 alumni of veterans or East Gloucester, and 178 attended Gloucester Public Schools, 26 others. So that's the demographic of the amount of people that were able to give feedback on this process.
You could check more than one, because some folks.
Right.
So for the first response, remember there were 3 options. This is the breakdown just of what schools they chose. We're going to get into the details of that in a little bit. And the second and the third. So there were 308 responses just for the third one. So that's kind of interesting. In addition to the online responses, we had a night, it was on September 13th at East Gloucester School, where people could come in and we had a naming night and they could come ask questions about the names, and our wonderful committee was there to answer them and present the 10 different names. From that, we had 12 paper responses. So those responses are included in the data. And I want to remind you that this was not a vote. This is people who responded. So, but here for each of the 10 names, we had, you can see how many responses we had for each name. Again, some of the responses were positive, some of them were neutral, some of them were not positive. So that led to an interesting task for our wonderful committee, because they had to read through all of the comments. And they had to decide if a comment was in favor of a name, or saying, don't really like that name, or if it was just somebody clicked the button that they of that name. So that was an interesting task that we've been doing over the last few meetings. And we narrowed it down to 4. So without further ado, the final 4. And these are presented, I will say, in no particular order. The committee is saying neutral on which ones they would like. But we're going to go through the 4. Each one of our fabulous staff members that helped will lead one slide. They will introduce the students on the committee, and then the students will tell you the name and why it was selected. Are we ready? All right, Ms. Flaherty, I believe your group goes first.
So this is Penny Giddens. She's with me at 4th grade at East Gloucester. This is Natalie Creasy. She's at Veterans at 5th. And I have Ryan Brigham. I had her last year. She's now a 5th grader at East Gloucester. And they are ready to tell you the first. Penny's going to tell you the name.
Seaside Elementary School. And these are some positive comments we chose. Seaside is a new beginning for our new school. Seaside is a fresh start for everyone. Seaside is a great name for an elementary school on the water. Gloucester is by the sea, so it represents Gloucester. I like the nautical name. I think it's the best choice. It speaks to Gloucester as a town.
So they pulled out their favorite quotes from all of the comments that Amy had mentioned that we went through. So they pulled out their favorite ones.
Thank you very much. All right, our next name is going to be presented by Ms. Carrie Fellingham.
Sure, I have to stand because you can't see me. This is Braden Simon. He is at East Gloucester. This is, I've practiced 700 times. Natasha Diaz Sanchez, right, from Veterans, and then Ava Harrington, who was at Veterans last year and is now at O'Malley. So this is our second slide.
We are presenting the second finalist for the school name, First Light Elementary School. This name was suggested by a community member and received a lot of positive feedback. Some of the comments and thoughts about First Light were, each day is a new beginning. The sun rises in the east and will shine in our school. The name First Light Elementary School is uplifting and uniting. It is unique and most inspiring. First Light also gives an appreciation to our natural world and will go along with the interior design and colors of our new school. With First Light Elementary School, we could use the current logo with the East Gloucester School Lighthouse and Veteran Depot. This would blend our two schools into one. Thank you for your time.
The next slide will be presented by Bethany Gallinelli and her group.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bethany Gallinelli. I teach third grade at Veterans. This is Zoe Jackman, and Ella Lori, and Janelle Brinkley. I'm going to present the next name.
This is Fisherman's Memorial Elementary. The fishing community connects all the people together, and the new school would strengthen that connection. When people think of Gloucester, one of the first things they mention is the fishing industry and the strong history it holds. The fisherman's name will align with the nautical theme of the building.
The name Fisherman Memorial pays tribute to and honors fishermen we lost at sea. It also represents our city, which has a rich fishing history. Here's what some of the people said, the alumni. I feel like this name encompasses all of what Gloucester as a whole embodies, and I feel like it allows children from both districts an opportunity to learn more about the heritage of this beautiful city we all call home. And that was from an alumni. And the consistent mascot from elementary school through high school. Fisherman is the name of my soccer team. A student. I like this one because fishing and fishermen are such a huge part of Gloucester's identity, a family member. A community member said it was very Gloucester.
And our final finalist is going to be presented by Dawn Leone.
I'm Dawn Leone, and my group consists of Paige Lambert, a 6th and 6th grader at O'Malley. We have Addie Amaro from 7th grade in O'Malley, and Malia Andrews, a junior at GHS.
So we're presenting the name for East Veterans Elementary School.
A community member said it honors the history of both former schools.
A family member said, I believe it's a perfect mix paying homage to both schools.
A community member said, I like the fact veterans is still on the name. The vets deserves to still have the honor of keeping that name.
An alumni community and family members said it incorporates both schools equally without completely changing either one of the schools' names. This is a great way to literally merge the two schools into one.
East Veterans Elementary School is my favorite name, and it's a great name mixing East Veterans and East Gloucester and Veterans. Out to the students.
Any other questions or anyone ask the students? Process or their work, or just wrap up with the time when it really goes here?
I want to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question too.
Yeah, me too.
Given that you had 10 names, was it difficult to come down to 4, or were there 4 that kind of rose to the top pretty easily for you?
It was kind of a bit of both because we had to read through all the comments. At first, we kind of just looked at what the community said and how many votes each name had. So we kind of narrowed down, like the lower votes, we kind of crossed out immediately. For the top ones, it was kind of hard because it was the ones that we all liked and then the ones that the community offered. So it was kind of a mix of both. Kind of difficult.
So I just want to ask, and I want you all to be honest with me, was there any conversations between you two trying to convince each other of a particular name?
I think we all liked there are a few top 2 that everyone likes.
Okay,
So there wasn't a lot of like convincing.
so but there's 2 that the majority of you like.
And then some, like this majority like two, but then there's
I give you $5.
the majority of us like 2, but I think everyone also had kind of the favorite out of the 4 of them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My question would be, were you aware that it's important to the community what the school is named? I mean, were you conscious of the fact that a lot of people were talking about it and it seemed to be a pretty big name?
Yeah, we read all of the comments, so we know how everyone feels about the names of the school, whether it be negative or positive, and how much the name would mean to the community.
Just as a add on to that, just an appreciation of all the time and effort that you all put into it. You're busy, you're young people, and you did a wonderful job.
Very
And
valuable job.
we had visitors, two different kinds of visitors. Do you remember? Who came to speak to us? Was that in the committee?
The veterans and then was it
Alumni.
the alumni came and talked to us about how they felt about keeping the veterans part of the name and how they felt about also representing both communities in the names and how they felt about the two schools merging and their experience at both of the schools.
I have a question. Keith, you've had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Oh, that was because I couldn't hear the audio from the slideshow. That was a while ago. Sorry.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Is there any way we can get a recap of that conversation anywhere?
Which
With others?
conversation?
Was that a public?
It was not, it was part of the naming process.
Okay.
The committee wanted to hear from alumni
Okay.
and from veterans. And so we opened up to alumni from both East Gloucester and Veterans Memorial, and they came and spoke about what the communities at each school meant to them.
Okay.
And then we also had Adam Kuguru, and he brought another woman with him that's also a veteran, to speak about their experience as a veteran.
Okay.
And they just kind of talked about their love of Gloucester, their love of the community, and how much a school defines, that part of that community.
It was really amazing how the alumni and the veterans all had the same really deep feelings for this community. Gloucester means to them. So it's really nice.
Thank you.
Questions?
I just want to recognize this again, like, this is so amazing, both to the staff and to all the students, like, what an amazing job you did. Like, I hope you feel really proud and just excited, whatever name we come up with, we choose, you did this.
It's a very important job.
It's really exciting, so I just wanted to do that.
It's okay if there's sighs of relief over there. You finished all your work. I know. We have this past row shows the last slide here, so we just go what happens from here, both for the committee, which you know, but also for the public. So from here, the school committee will move towards the final input and decision. So tonight, as of course, we just announced the 4 finalist names. We'll publicize that on the website and via school and school committee Facebook group starting tonight. We'll also expect that the Gloucester Daily Times will do an article as well, which is great. We'll also tomorrow launch an online forum for more input, and that'll be for the committee's benefit. So folks will have a variety of ways to provide input, both an online form, a new one, just for the 4 finalists, email to the committee, obviously, and then also at the public hearing. So the committee scheduled a public hearing for October 12th, I guess in 2 weeks, during the regular school committee meeting. And so anyone can come and, just like in any public meeting, provide input, but that'll be specifically on the 4 finalists. And then right now, the school committee is scheduled to make a final decision, deliberate, make a final decision on the new name on October 26th. A lot of folks very excited for that decision. Looking forward to it, so. Any questions for us about process or like that? Process?
I do. So I'm seeing the online form. Are we gonna see all the information, all the data from those forms?
Yeah. Absolutely. One other thing I just want to remind all of you and the public, just as we said tonight, is the online forms, just like it was for the nomination committee, is input, not votes. And so you know that, but also the public knows that. Not votes, it's in, just like whenever you get input from any decisions, you folks would, the school will consider all those and deliberate and come to a decision. Right? Like you always do, so any questions, we can let these folks go home with one more big thanks and just acknowledge that it's been a tremendous process and really doing a great job of including people, demonstrating student leadership for young students and older students, and I think really having great collaboration across many people. So.
And I just want to mention, if you have classmates that want to weigh in during this public hearing, we will happily we will welcome their comments, because they've probably been asking a lot of questions, they may have opinions, and we would love to hear from them, families as well. So we can spread the word, they can just call in on the phone or get on their computer. That's their thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
guys.
much.
Matt, great job.
Oh, thanks. Good job. Really proud. All of you.
Just give us a second while superintendent's.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, Ellie, you are up. Thank you for your
Thank you. Sorry about earlier. I'm not sure what was happening.
That's all right.
So we don't really have much planning. Just kind of like a recap of the last week or two. We had the freshmen elected their student council. This week we've been doing Spirit Week for our home game and our pep rally on Friday. All the fall sports teams are still doing well, going strong. The fall theater is doing Clue, and they have their roles and all the cast picked out. The clubs have been doing good, all the meetings, and then the new program, the Police Academy, is doing really well, and it's a big success right now. And then the bank just opened as well. They're going to be open a few days a week.
Question. So I would love to know who we playing on Friday night.
So we are playing Salem at home for football.
And when's the rally?
And when do you have the pep rally? Friday?
Yes, we have the pep rally on Friday, and it's starting at 1 o'clock. So it'll just be for the last hour of school.
You mentioned, I think I've heard Police Academy. Is that what you expect? Can you give us some more information on that?
Yeah, I'm actually I do the Police Academy Club. It's with Officer Scola, and we meet, seems to be like every other Monday or every Monday, just for like 45 minutes to an hour. And I know last week I wasn't here, but they got to like explore the cop car and like just go over stuff like that with him and one of his coworkers. And then this Monday, one of the other police officers brought in the motorcycle and talked about all the stuff with the motorcycle. And he's also in the NEMLAC unit, I think. So that's with like a bunch of other police officers from the area, and he told us a lot about that, and that was very cool.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you for being with us. You're welcome to stay anytime you call in, but we understand that everybody has a lot of homework or other things, so.
Yeah.
Good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
So we will return to the superintendent to continue deliberations on educational issues.
Great. It seems sort of quiet and lonely now. I guess. All right, so we'll give you an update on a few matters here. Most important news we already covered, but as we know, everything matters here in Gloucester School and everybody belongs. Actually, it's a slideshow. Okay, so in terms of tonight, I'll give a summary of the plan for ongoing improvement. That's up for your deliberation and adoption tonight. So choose. Then update on school attendance zones and just our outreach that's underway related to the proposed update of school attendance zones. A quick update on the mailing windows, and then EGS events product update as well. So just a few things. First one is the Gloucester plan for schools plan for ongoing improvement. So on August 31st, we presented a draft to all of you. Since then, we provided the details behind all those plans for you to look at. Just a place where we are. The plan has 3 components. So student belonging, learning support, and instruction. That's what we've been working on now, tonight rather, and what I presented in August. Operations, so we're making quite a bit of headway with the operations teams. So food service, transportation, resources, capital planning, we've been doing for a couple of years now, and then also IT. So I've been meeting with the leaders of each of those departments over the last few weeks, and they're doing very much a similar approach to what we have for student belonging, learning, and instruction. And then are operationalizing now, actually. So we as I mentioned last time, the Gloucester Education Foundation has been really helpful in being a team of communication professionals, and they're working with myself, Mike Gaffney. Now we sort of have the basics of what we want to accomplish, and now we're working on how to operationalize that outreach, communications, and community engagement. So as I said tonight, we're focusing on adopting the plan and priorities for student belonging, learning, support, and instruction. So just to summarize a few things here, because I know you've looked at them. We had a full presentation. You've been looking at the details. So our 4 priorities: deepen student belonging and engagement in school. Number 1, if kids don't feel like they belong and they're not fully engaged in school, they don't learn. So that's why that's priority 1. Priority 2, instruction really matters in schools. So we want to continue to strengthen our instruction and better connect general ed and special education. The concept there is that all students are all of our students, that there really should not be any division between students who need specialized instruction and students who are general education. So we need to coordinate and support both of those better so they work better together. Priority 3, strengthening student social emotional learning and mental health support. So this has always been really important in schools. And over the past 20 years or so, we've understood that more and more. In particular, the past 2.5 years, where many folks, families, people in our society have been in crisis because of the pandemic, it's ever more important. Thankfully, the Gloucester Public Schools and Gloucester School Committees have been putting in place over many years that support. So we're in much better shape than many other places are. Priority 4 is strengthen special education to improve coordination and services and also specialized instruction. So really here, there's work we need to do to really make sure our process of evaluation, assessment, and identification of students who need specialized instruction is clear, more coherent, and it's understandable to families, but also understandable and done well by our staff. So there's areas we can strengthen. All of those pieces working together result in our ultimate goal, which is deep student learning, improve academic achievement, and making sure our GS graduates are prepared for the next step after graduation. So those are the priorities, okay? We could do a million things under each one of those, and we'd get nowhere. So we have identified a future state we're working towards in each, and also key sort of priority or really goals in each of those. You've seen the details of that were up underneath all that. Tonight we're talking about the priorities and the goals. So in the future state we are working towards. And so again, the future state, I like to remind people it doesn't mean we don't have these things in place. So I'll just use the first one. Gloucester Public Schools is a warm, friendly, welcoming community for all students and families. Okay. Yes, we are a warm, friendly, welcoming community. Absolutely. Okay. So it doesn't mean that it means this is what we aspire to, what we're working towards, and also many times we have these in place. Okay. So it's about keeping them. In Gloucester Public Schools, every student experiences a sense of belonging every day. Children want to come to school because they're involved and connected inside and outside the classroom. And our families feel welcome and appreciated and are partners in the education of their child. So we're doing a lot of great things in all these areas, and we've got work to do. That's okay. That's how you get better at things in life. So in terms of deepening student belonging and engagement in school, priority number 1, we've got 3 goals. All of our schools will deepen our students' and families' sense of belonging and connection to our schools. So for the next 3 years, our elementary schools are really working on making sure families who don't typically participate in school events and in the sort of community of the school are better connected and more engaged and are easier for them to participate and be a part of that community. In our high school, middle school, we're really focused on how do we create more opportunities for belonging and leadership among our middle school and high school students. Okay. A lot of opportunities now, but we can broaden that and deepen that. Goal number 2 is about our work on chronic absenteeism. Well, obviously, this is already underway. You know quite a bit about it. You are instrumental in changing the attendance policy, which was the first real strong step in that. And we'll have our data teams up and running this year. And then third one here is being very intentional about working with our students from 8th grade on, really, from end of 8th grade to begin the transition to high school, and making sure that they first explore a variety of options during high school, but then each student is clear about they've chosen them and they're preparing for their next step of graduation. And that next step can be a whole range of things. It can be 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, the trades, employment, internships, gap years, military. But we want folks to know that we value all those options because you can build a successful and contributing life through all those avenues. But really important that we are deliberate with our students about making sure they are choosing what they want to do, and then we help them prepare for that. And stop, ask questions or make comments anytime. Priority 2 is strengthen instruction and better connect general and special education. So our future state is all Washington Public Schools have an inclusive culture in which every student receives engaging, high-quality instruction, supported interventions and enrichment every day. And then all students grow academically, socially, and emotionally and develop from independent to independent learners. So we're speaking to our mission there directly. 4 goals in this area: strengthen Tier 1 curriculum instruction to deepen learning for all students. So Tier 1 curriculum instruction is the instruction every student gets every single day. If you think of the basic program of what we offer, that's what we mean by strengthen Tier 1 curriculum instruction. Something that schools always need to do. We always are improving our practice and being deliberate about it. Goal 2, strengthen inclusive practices through improved clarity of best practices, more effective professional development, and easier access to instructional resources. This is a key area of connecting special education and general education. So we want our students with disabilities more involved and more included in our classes than ever before. Okay, but that takes a work of professional development. It takes a bit of a change in mindset. It also makes sure that we have instructional resources that really span that curriculum for all of our students. But the idea is, just like federal and state law require, that our students with disabilities are in the least restrictive environment. And often that means that they could be, need to be in classes with all their peers. Goal 3 is ensure all students with disabilities and all English learners have received essential Tier 1 instruction every day. A challenge we have, like many schools, is because of our schedules. Sometimes we will pull out students with disabilities or English learners, okay, who need additional support for very different reasons out of the Tier 1 instruction. So it's like getting double dose of English or mathematics or reading or writing. They're getting one just in a smaller group, not in the main classroom. So we need to make sure we create schedules and have the support so they get both. Specifically for those students, because they're often pulled from, they're making choices, and many schools do this, but it really takes a different look at scheduling and staffing to do that well, to make sure they get both, and that's one of the other.
And I think one of the comments we heard somebody do a little examination of English learner is that at the high school in particular, it really impacts what electives they can enjoy and benefit from as well. So I think that examination is very important.
Yeah. It's hard to do everything, and we can't. That's what folks are saying, but being deliberate about it, being thoughtful about it, so kids are getting sort of the fullest education that they need. Absolutely. And then also part of this is educating families and how our schools use these variety of tiers of instruction to really serve all students. And that's sort of an outreach and education about parents, both special education, but also about our general education and our approach there. So, yeah.
Two questions, Ben. Give me just, I mean, strengthen tier one curriculum, goal number one. Give me, if you can, give me like an example of what strengthening that means, that tier one, does it?
Yeah, so I'll use an example which you're familiar with, which, our work on English language arts at K-5 with wit and wisdom.
Yeah.
So the whole process of piloting, the new curriculum and making sure it's more engaging, more rigorous, the kids are really using, real literature as part of their work. Greg Bach can say more about that, but that's a really good example. Another example you're familiar with is the curriculum review that's happening in English language arts and math at the middle school. And then they're gonna be adopting new curriculum from that, review, piloting, and then adoption. So those are two really good examples on the high school part.
Yeah, that's excellent, and I appreciate it. And my other one was educate families. What is that on how our schools use multiple tiers? I mean, do you have a vision for that, like bringing parents in to talk about, hey, the tier system, or?
Look at Mr. Bach for that one.
Huh?
He's got more vision on this than I do.
Yeah, one of the things that our teachers noted, well, when we were planning in the spring, is that there were a number of things that needed to do simultaneously to do a couple things. One, to build trust and understanding through transparency to our families. And that though we have so many good things going on in the schools, and we have over the last decade have spent a lot of money and a lot of time training in the newest best programs, including the piloting or the implementation that we're going through now. That's not necessarily widely understood by parents. And so one of the initiatives is, simultaneous initiative is to not just document, here's what Gloucester Schools uses, but to actually create the kinds of parent-friendly guides, language, interactions at open house evenings or at parent conferences that will really help our parents understand, what is it that we are doing for all students, whether they are able to access the curriculum at the tier one level, which is regular instruction, or whether they need to utilize what we've developed over the number of years, which is a really intensive series of interventions that you don't have to have your student tested for a disability. You don't have to have an IEP to be able to access those. And a lot of people don't realize that much of the same services that you would get if you had a learning disability, students are getting, even if they're just struggling in a particular area. And that's not really well known. And the feeling is that, one, it's important to communicate so that we can more closely work with parents in supporting the students in the curriculum, but also because we find that a lot of parents are nervous about, my child is experiencing difficulty for the first time. What do I do? And we want to do that ahead of time so they understand that we have a really good setup, good sequence, and how that works. And we have not done that.
Yeah, interesting. I appreciate that. I think I don't want parents to feel as excited about some of the programs that we've introduced
We
as
should
I
also
do when I
feel
talk about.
really confident about the steps that we take when we recognize that students are struggling. There's a lot of work that happens, and they should know that.
Right. Just like I think we've done a really good job of educating, the committee, many presentations, and having, our staff here and yours here, do a different version of that.
Yep.
So parents are informed.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff.
Keith?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask specifically about what the connection and priority two is between special education and the general education.
Sure.
What kind of connection is that?
So it's more about better integration. So I think I'll describe it in a way of what it's not first, okay? We never want in any school system, and particularly here in ours, to think of general education students or this group of students and special education group of or special education students or that group of students, and these staff take care of those students and these staff take care of general education students. Okay, that's a real separation. I'm just making it a stark sort of example of that. Okay, so there's a real sort of two groups in a sense, and those kids are yours and these kids are mine type of thing. Okay, I'm not saying it's what we have here. Okay, I'm just using the negative example here. So we want to make sure that first of all, everyone realizes and accepts and operates in a way that all students are all of ours. Okay, whether they've been identified with specialized needs or not. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you have classes that as much as possible, students are integrated into the general education class, and then they're getting supports either in that class in small groups, sometimes outside of that class in small groups, depending what their needs are, but that's much more fluid, okay? And that's fluid based on the student with disabilities identified needs and the support they require. It's not based on simply separating them from into different classrooms, basically, okay? Which is it's less effective for all students. It's also if you do that very deliberately or very starkly, it's actually against federal and state laws. So it's a better understanding, first of all, okay, and then a better integration, and that comes with also better support of our teachers, so they understand the variety of approaches and practices to create better inclusion.
Yeah, I went to the West Parish curriculum night, and a lot of things were explained. They briefly went over the 2 tiers that us as a committee know more deeply, so that was good. I didn't see any handouts about that, but they did go over breakout groups within the classroom. So even if you have kids that need extra special attention, certain faculty members actually come and visit the classroom. There's also other helpers, and so that's nice. They can break out into small groups or one-on-one. The other thing I wanted to say is,
sorry, let me say, because you made me think of another concrete example of that connection is if for example, a special education teacher needs to work with 2 students on a specific literacy skill, because they've been identified for that need. There may be 2 other students who are general education, they don't have IIP, but they're struggling with that same skills. You can actually, instead of just working with those 2 students, that very well trained teacher can work with all 4 students, and that's the way you're connecting it. So you're not just separating out those 2 students. They're working with 2 other students, and it's based on the need of those students in addition to any identified services they need.
Yeah, I know from my personal experience, way back when West Parish was not as old, it was much older. I used to actually have to go to a small classroom myself because of dyslexia, and that was kind of stigmatizing, I would have to say, but it wasn't too bad. But nowadays I've got my own son in West Parish, and he notices I'm thinking about the extremes too as well. So students with extreme needs and in their in what they require, that my son in particular, he's quite empathetic. He sees these other students and he's curious, and I'm just wondering if there are any opportunities for other empathetic kids to become more involved, maybe like in a special situation, or maybe they see each other on the playground. He likes that experience. We have friends that are in similar situations.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it really does speak to what what we want to do more of, which is I'll just use an example from that doesn't really apply in our schools right now, but this is from an example I know from another school, and someone shared with me recently our session, which is a 5th grade student, an elementary school student who was blind. Okay, and again, this is not a Gloucester example, but it I think speaks to your point. And that student, who I think was a 3rd grade student, has a 5th grade student who helps them off the bus and to their class. But there are also older students supporting that younger student who has who's blind, who's an impairment, and that sort of connection helps the older student learn a bunch of things and helps that connection between those 2 students, and also provides the support that the blind student really needs. That can be provided by an adult, but also can be provided by a student as well, you know, and there are opportunities like that, I think, to do more of that, whether it's a child who has complex, you know, needs on a variety of levels, whether it's a learning disability, you know, to really connect kids who are, you know, who are different in many ways, but really can support each other and work together. So I think that's really appreciate your question there.
Okay.
All right, get back to this. All right, priority 3, strengthen emotional, social, emotional learning and mental health support. So again, the future state we're working towards in collaboration with families and community partners. We can't do it all on our own here in the Gloucester Public Schools. Our schools will support the overall mental health and wellness of all of our students. We've committed to ensuring that every student learns the social emotional skills necessary to thrive in school and beyond. So a few areas here, social emotional learning skill development. So just like we have in academic instruction, we want to continue to build, in some ways, or rebuild our social emotional learning skill curriculum. And really, what does that mean at different ages? You know, preschool, K to 5, and within K to 5 that changes over the years. What's important at middle school and also high school. Develop systematic mechanisms for early identification of students who require additional targeted support. So if you think of goal 1 as sort of the tier 1, you know, the instruction every child gets across the years. And then goal 2 is sort of the tier 2, where what are those students who need additional support? And then strengthen the expertise and skills of our school-based clinical staff. I'm just going to reference something that you know about, which is the consult across all of our clinical staff. Amy Camp started last year, we're continuing that. That is the primary way, that and professional development, and they're working together on problems of practice is, you know, the primary way for our clinical staff to develop their skills, expertise. And then provide intensive student support by leveraging community partnerships. When students are in really intensive need, we do already and have you know, partner with outside agencies, both local or regional, just provide that support. And this is we'll continue to do that, in some ways deepen it and make it more broaden into other areas as well. That's around mental health support and variety of ways. And then priority 4, this is really about special education processes and then also coordination of services. So this is where we sort of really dig down into making sure that our eligibility processes, how we can create IEPs, how we provide targeted specialized support are really top-notch, thoughtful, data-based, and they really focus on students' academic, social, and emotional growth. 3 areas here: strengthen our evaluation and eligibility processes. So how do we one example here is make sure these are data-based and making sure our teachers are involved more in these processes. So in some of our schools, teachers have been involved in that evaluation process, and some they haven't been, and they bring a really important perspective to each child from the, working with them over the course of months or years. And so that's one example of the way we can strengthen the evaluation process, to have teachers involved in that, train them to be involved in that. Strengthen individualized education program development. So our IEP development really dictates what services and staffing we provide to our students with disabilities, and making sure those are clear, they're concrete, they're easily understood by families, and then we can assess whether or not we're providing the services and whether they're making an impact. So we have some work to do on that. Partially that's because the Department of Education has rolled out a new, I'm going to say template, it's not quite the right word, format and structure of those. And so we have to train our folks on that. And then the last piece is strengthen specialized instructional practices. So that's sort of looking at our separate programs and making sure each program, so this is where we have students with very complex needs, and they have specific programs in specific schools at elementary, and then also at O'Malley and GHS. Make sure those staff have the types of training and instructional practices specific to the students in their care. That's some work to do on that. that's the last piece. We are now also working with the leadership team on operationalizing the plan, because we can create a plan and sit there and do nothing with it. That would be very productive, but helpful. I don't want to do that. So just recently, we're working on, as we continue to finalize the plan and we're getting input on it, internal communications. So how to make sure that our staff are not only aware of it, but also know what their part in it is and what work they'll be doing. Okay, a lot of that will be new and we're already doing it. Okay, planning budget development. How do we use our ongoing plan for improvement to drive our school improvement planning, our district and staff and school budget planning, and also administrative evaluation. Okay, because we need support and also need accountability. And then monitoring progress and annual assessment. So how do we know that we're making the progress we want to on each separate initiative or the work we're doing? And how do we every year sort of take a step back and say, are we doing the right things? Are we making the right progress on any of our efforts? Do we need to adjust that? Okay, so that's a sort of an annual approach. And then external communications, how do we make sure that we inform the families and community, both what we intend to do, which is what this plan as you guys have is, but then also how we communicate regularly and consistently about the progress and the work we're doing and where we have to go. So the leadership team recently has, sort of as developing work in each of these areas to do that, to each of these, to make sure we are actually not only improving the operations.
So just a question about how you would assess Gloucester Public Schools as a warm and welcoming community.
Sure.
Just how do we assess that?
So one thing is participation, are people showing up and who's showing up? Like if you think about our work with families, okay. Another way is surveys. So we've plenty of surveys with students already. We may have to make those a little more precise or adjust them based on that as a real goal, okay? And and then we have to not only do the surveys, we have to take the time to analyze them, and because a lot of the ones we have talk directly to that. Okay? We haven't really been reporting on them too much or looking at them too closely or the former practice. And then we can do the same thing with families as well. So those are just off the top of my head. We're going to develop those benchmarks and measurements in the upcoming months, as I explained last time, but those are just a few.
So just sort of following on that, like, it feels to me that I'm sure that part of the process will be to make sure that the parents who when we're trying to engage families who are not engaged, they're the hardest folks in many cases to get a survey to, that people will then do, and to understand, there's a whole, there's a lot behind what makes someone answer a survey.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and then return it. There's all these processes. So I'm sure that I know that will be part of the process, but I'm really, I just really encourage a lot of focus on reaching families who are the hardest.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And we've already, in my monthly parent years meeting, I've already talked to them about that as one of the, that's the work we're gonna be doing with them this year. And then also they'll be doing that together, learning from each other. And then also obviously working with their principals and folks at the school in their PTO on that as well focus. And that's not just this year, it'll take a number of years to really get better at that. But the work this year is to try some things out, pilot something, and then learn from that. That's the only way you really get better. There's no, and there's a lot of good work out there that folks should do, but what's going to work here? You got the only way to learn that is try it out and see how it goes, and then adjust. So yeah.
And to engage community partners, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the work we're doing that we launched, we used the community stakeholders group when I first came here, just around COVID and doing that. Okay, then we re-engaged them, especially last year, on really focusing on learner families. And really just learning, a whole group is learning a lot from each other. Everything from pipeline towards employment, but also Brazilian Independence Day sort of didn't come out of that group, but that group helped with it, in terms of being there as a presence. So that's a real group to meet on and learn from around how to engage certainly our English learner families. So yeah.
I want to thank you and Greg very much for this very comprehensive, detailed, and making our schools almost perfect if this really happens in the next 3 years. So.
Get back.
Really well.
What you gotta get back.
No, but it really is a dynamic piece to see where the focus is and where we're going, because it's in line with the struggles that are going on in the world as a whole, not just in schools. So I just wish it was outside the schools and not just inside the schools that we had this focus. But my question is, so hearing all this is great. The first thing I can think of is, do we have enough support staff to make this happen? Like, does this proposal, as I will call it right now, to make the schools better, is there gonna be a budget impact, and what support do you need from us to make this happen? I mean, have you gotten to that point yet? You talk about classrooms and the dynamics of bringing two students together, that one may be identified and one is just known to have to need more support in that area. I see an extra person in the classroom to do that. I don't know if that's how it was intended, because I mean, I don't know the magic of teachers these days. The differentiation that they now have in classrooms is much different than it was 14 years ago when I got on the school committee. So I guess I'm kind of worried about pressure to the teaching staff and expectations, and not having enough support to make this really happen. And I want to see this move forward and flourish, not have the struggles of staff being overwhelmed or things like that. So how do you envision that, if you've done that already, or is that to come at another step?
So it's probably to come, but let me, so I'm not gonna sit there and say, we're perfectly staffed and perfectly budgeted, okay? We have to, do more work now with these priorities in mind, right? So I'll give you one example of where, in terms of what I was talking about, just to build an example, okay? Which you don't necessarily need more staff, right? So instead of taking out, like the example I talked about with Keith, was those two students who are special education students and have certain needs on literacy, okay? So if you have a staff member who takes those out, takes those two students to a different room to support them, okay? Then it's harder to support the two students I talked about who are in the classroom and have the same needs. You essentially, in some ways, need another person, right? Because the teacher's doing, the big bulk of students. But if instead you're helping support those two students with special needs inside the classroom, then the same staff member can very easily, can work with, 4 students instead of 2, and that's because they're working on the same thing. If they're working different things, then it becomes much more difficult. If they're working on the same thing, that's a question of, and we do this very well at our schools, identify specifically what a child needs, the support they need, the skill they need on literacy, for example. So we know that information, and the question of just having different approaches to staffing. That's simplifying it, I don't want to say it, but that's an example where you're connecting general ed and special ed. You're providing better support to the two students who may not be getting it inside the classroom, and you don't necessarily have to add staff. Okay? But again, that's a pretty straightforward example, and then maybe we can work with from there. So.
Is this something that comes out of data meetings as well? So as we're talking about each student and what their particular challenges are, what's the commonalities, kind of aligning those.
Without our data meetings, we don't have that at all. And then also our IP meetings as well.
But that leads me to another question. So if that's the mechanism to move forward, does that mean through testing that you're gonna put cluster kids in the classrooms according to needs, so that you can share that?
I don't want to go too far.
That's why I'm saying, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far with one example, just to illustrate a point, okay, on that. But yes, I don't mean, in the sense that we do a lot of flexible grouping already, so this isn't new to us. Okay, it's a question of do more of it. Again, it all will always depend on what's the need of those students, and do they match up, in the classroom, that sort of stuff, and then do we have staff to do it this way and describe it. So, but that's I'll just say this is, if we're talking about involving more families, or we're talking about better connecting general ed and special education, this is multi-year work. So and then a lot of stuff won't even be fully done in 2 years. So the work takes a commitment over time to stick with, as opposed to changing up every year. So I just want to sort of.
Greg would like that.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, just one quick illustration would be, rather than pulling kids out and clustering them, what we were talking about is taking the data from a data meeting to understand the needs of all of the students in the room. We have that capability. But to better coordinate the services that are provided by Yale teachers, Title I teachers, special education teachers, rather than taking out just the students who are on IEPs and need additional support. Might be 3 students, rather than taking just the English learner students. You know, the goal and the dream really is to have those, as much as possible, those staff members push into the classroom and now work with the 3 plus 2 other students who have been identified as needing that specific skill or content. They might join that group over there, just the way we've done for a while in the classroom with stations. It's just a better understanding and a better integration with those personnel who provide those services. So ideally, you would walk into a classroom and all same 20 students are there. They might be working here one day because that specific need, which all of those staff members are well versed in the core curriculum rather than a separate curriculum outside. That's the goal. It'll take a while to get there, but I see it as more of an integrating all of it right in the classroom where all the students are. Yeah.
Keith, you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking over the something I got by email, a little more detail about what was it, goal 3 with the SEL, social emotional learning. There's some data collection and things like that. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. Amy Kim is on the line. I think she might be paying attention here. So let's just pull up exactly. Just want to get to what you're talking about specifically. Just give us a moment here.
Do you want me to promote her, Ben?
If you could, and she may be eating dinner or napping, but she's on there definitely.
Don't turn the camera on.
Don't turn the camera on.
Yeah, priority 3 goal. Hold on.
Hi, I'm on my phone. Hold on. I'm trying to turn my camera on.
So Keith, if you can just read off specifically which one you're referring to, that'd be helpful for both me and Amy.
Yeah, let me find my place here. Yeah, I think it was goal 2, B here, using screening and behavioral health data dashboard data to identify and respond to student trends in mental health. Specifically trends in mental health, what are we looking for?
Hold on. Hi.
What are there things that, yeah, I mean, and how is this data anonymized, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so we are looking at data in different ways. We're developing a behavioral health data dashboard with our evaluators, and that will help us track different incidences where kids might be released from school because of a mental health issue, or there's a screening that happens. So that is some of the data we're looking at, making sure that we're responding appropriately. Right now, we don't keep that data. It's going to have a lot of protections for compliancy with HIPAA and FERPA.
And also a very limited number of staff who have access to that.
Right.
And the purpose really there is to keep track, are there larger trends in mental health among our kids that need to be addressed? So, you know, we do a good job of addressing each individual student who needs some additional support, either by our own staff or about outside referrals, okay? But sometimes by focusing one by one, we may be losing sight of larger trends or larger, just
right. Patterns, right.
Patterns in that. And if so, say we see a pattern in anxiety around school avoidance, I'm just making this up, okay, then it may be that we need to do a broader broader work on that, on school avoidance, as opposed to, one person at a time. And that's how that trend, more broadly, instead of student by student, might help us to support all students or a larger number of students.
Yeah, so we're gonna be developing this over time, it looks like, this database.
Yeah, right, that one specifically in terms of, and that's taking data we already are aware of from students, and just documenting it so we can look at and see if there are any larger trends that are patterns that are popping up.
Right, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I should even mention this, but I know historically it was in the news nationally. There was a situation where high school students were becoming pregnant as a group. I mean, would that be something that would come up in this screening as like a warning, or like, I don't know how this would work. I mean,
So it's, it hasn't been rolled out yet. And I think, that kind of data is not going to be tracked. It's really around mental health and behavioral health data. But I can, if there's a time that I can present it and show it to the school committee, I can do that. And I think it'll help clarify.
yeah,
this.
that would be, I was hoping, I could ask that too as well. I'd love a little tour if there's a way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we will, it's on this, I think it's already scheduled, I'm not sure which month. But let's like last year, we'll have one Amy Cam come and explain or give it the committee an update on the progress we're making in these areas related to social emotional learning and mental health supports, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about like the whole idea of data collection, especially when it has to do with mental health of individual students. So yeah, I just want to flesh that out a little bit.
Okay.
So maybe some other time.
All right. Other questions or suggestions or comments from the committee? Okay, go
Oh, I
ahead.
didn't know we were doing that.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
I move that we approve to adopt the Belleville Public Schools 3-year plan for ongoing improvement. Second.
Discussion.
Excellent work.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely ambitious and comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
We'll speed ahead.
It is,
To everyone.
yeah, and well, if the easy part's done. Right.
I don't know if that's true,
Well, no,
but
First
no, but I'll say this goes back to my entry plan from almost a year ago, right? After I've been here for a year and that sort of thing. And, we have really great schools in Gloucester, okay? And like any great professionals, we continue to want to get better. And so our students are knows better. And there's only one way to do that, if we're working together. Knowing what we want to accomplish, and being ambitious about it, and then being deliberate, doing it over time. But that comes from working together, and that's what our schools, our staff do very, very well. And and the other thing they do very, very well, they do so many things well, but these are two of the top ones. They care deeply about our kids and their families. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything. So, as I've always said, great foundation in our schools, and our staff, the principals, we always get better. Very much. That's I really appreciate the committee support the plan.
thank you, Frank.
All right, a few more just,
Wait, we're gonna vote to vote.
oh, sorry. Didn't thank you yet.
You're not getting off that.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. And Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's 5-0. Okay,
All right, so just going back to give you a few more updates here. One second, this is always happens. I'm trying to track down the presentation. Again, start to delay. All right, O'Malley windows and door replacement. So the news on this is we're working with the city to move forward with the project funding agreement and the loan order. And that'll be going to the city council. Both of those will go to the city council next month. And we expect, we hope, or we're working with the city to get approval for both of those and delivered then to the MSBA by the last week of October. We could do the PAF, private PFA, private funding agreement, and then the loan order. We're gonna try to do them all at one time. So things moving right on schedule. That's all I have for that update. And then this is an exciting update. I know I keep telling you about the playgrounds, but they keep on making progress. This is supposed to be Plum Cove tonight, and we have pictures, so why not, right? So what I didn't, or I forgot, was that the equipment for the playground at the playground that did exist last week at Plum Cove. That equipment came from Fuller in 2008. At that point, it already was used once. So this is what it looked like. And then day one, playground, DPW was removing the old playground. And then worked with the contractor on day 5 to prepare the site. We're on day 11 right now, by the way. So this was just less than a week ago. Okay. They installed drainage on day 7, especially at Plum Cove, to make it a much more usable, even in inclement weather or after inclement weather site for playing.
Do you know anything about how that works?
The drainage.
Do you? No.
I mean, I know the
I
basic
just thought
concept
water goes into the ground.
of
but
gravel.
they're removing
Yeah,
it
these
somewhere else.
are typically called tiles, these pipes.
Yeah.
And they have holes on the top of them. And so they absorb the water and then drain it away from places. I think that's the basic concept.
Okay.
Whether that's happened here or not. Great, but that big semi came 2 days ago and that has a playground equipment on it right there. Day 10, yesterday started installing the playground equipment.
Wow.
And day 11, you can see already some things are up and we're painting, the DPW is gonna repaint the benches and the tables that are there. And those look brand new. And then the schedule from here, this week we continue installation. Next week we complete installation. I say we, I'm not out there with any tools. The site work will conclude with installing fabric, laying stone and other pieces. Engineer wood fiber will be delivered at the end of next week. And then we'll complete the installation of the engineered wood fiber. That's the surface, you know. And then the grand opening will be somewhere the week of October 10th. Wow. So ribbon cutting, yes. I think we're gonna work on a ribbon cutting.
Lemonade, crazy.
We're gonna talk to Mr. Druid about that.
Oh, hot chocolate.
Let get into a couple things right now, but yeah, we'll work with them on a ribbon cutting. That's what we should do? Okay, ribbon cutting. It's a big scissors, Gary.
Somebody, some of us.
And then just an update on attendance, proposed update of school attendance zones. I shared the proposal with you our last meeting, but I just want to give you a sense of the outreach we've been doing. So we met with parent leaders. So we met with separate meetings with the PTO presidents of Beaman and Plum Cove separately, and also the principals with them. Met with parent leaders group last year. They were really helpful in terms of advice and suggestions on outreach. In terms of Facebook posts, sending emails to all families as well as the families on the affected streets. Been doing a lot of digital outreach, a full detailed website up and running, launched an online forum. We've been getting some input, not too much, but input from folks, a few folks who are impacted by it. And then emailed all families. And last week, and that was families who aren't being affected. We want them to know about it. And those separately on those who live on the affected streets, make sure that they realize that just because they live there doesn't necessarily mean they're being impacted, because we're grandfathering lots of folks, but that we would also be working with them if they are, especially if they have younger students. So that work will continue. We're connecting with families who reach out to either principal or myself, but we won't really work with them deliberately till we have an approved plan. We'll make sure they understand about what the process is and what the plan is and whether they're thinking to whether they might be affected. Talking to folks about transportation, that sort of thing, but more could.
We're having a public hearing on this next week. Is there any way we can do an all call?
Oh, you mean like a phone
Using the
call?
phone call, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
Just to remind parents that we are gonna take that input into consideration. I'm sure you mentioned it in the email, but sometimes things get lost in the writing. Find them in the time of the meeting.
And where to find them.
Where to find them.
Yep. a little concerned that folks will think it's all of them being affected, but it's not, it's a small number, but we can figure it out.
Say if you'd like to comment on the school committee's decision to make this adjustment.
Yeah.
And we can't make it, there's alternatives, Because I haven't seen, as a Beaman family, I haven't seen the online. Like, I haven't seen the way to, as a parent, I haven't seen a way to participate, to give my comment on. But it's a long, right?
Yeah, it gets lost in the right. I saw your email. and
Yeah, no, it's a good email.
But
It is.
I just want you to know, yes, and.
Yes.
It's hard to put all that in a 3-second phone call.
Well, just, we're looking for your response to the email I sent out or something.
Or it might be one quick blast, just 1 or 2 points, both.
Yep.
And I was looking in the newspaper to see if there was any article and I didn't see it either, so.
Friday there was.
Was it
It was
Fridays?
the lead article.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't see them. I only have the online edition, sometimes it's not up.
You had the map in there too.
Did I? It did, okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed that.
So we
Okay.
it's great with that.
Good to know.
Just also some personal outreach, so we've identified the English learner families who are impacted, who live on the streets that are changing, and we're reaching out to the specific ones who are impacted to make sure they're aware of it. And then also that we will work with them if necessary going forward as well. Remember, as I said, we want to make sure that they're aware of it, so that's a specific outreach. And as I already mentioned, responding to any family that connects with us, either by calling the principal, by the form, by email, and making sure we're following up with them, answering their questions. And then, of course, the public hearing, which that's what we just talked about. So we'll get more information out there about the public hearing. Any questions before I go on about that? Anything else? Okay. And then EGS Bets building project update. So lots of activity like there always is. So the joint professional development with both schools on yesterday. We continue to connect. Oh, Keith, I think had his hand up. Maybe on.
Yeah, I just wanted a quick question about the grandfathered families.
Yeah.
In busing opportunities, are they going to still be able to get on their buses?
Yeah, so we will still, in those 4 areas of the city where things have changed, really 3 apply in this situation. For 3 years, we'll have bus routes going into the same places for both schools, both the old school and the new school.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that last meeting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you
That's
didn't.
okay. Yeah,
Thanks.
that's fine. Yep, no problem. And then EGS, so joint professional development for EGS Bets, so bring 2 staff together on some work together. Furniture samples are at both schools, and those furniture samples were then swaps with the change schools, and they're collecting input on that. Then things like sheetrock and taping at Building A, installing heat pumps in Building A. They're going to begin installing the exterior metal panel system at Building A, which is still with brick and we have metal panels. Okay, so that'll look pretty snazzy. And then Building B, exterior wall framing, sheathing, air vapor barrier, the brick veneer on Building B rather, the plumbing rough-in, and then first delivery of curb section outside as well. So when the visitor, you saw that we had the first coat of pavement on there. Next step is the curb sections, and then we keep going. So it's a lot of different areas of the building. Is that
The first coat of binder.
binder? The first coat of binder. I can't remember that term. First coat of binder. What's on there on the parking lot?
Not to be confused with a notebook.
Right, exactly.
One thing to add to, the city council approved the easement for the utilities for the power for the site last night.
Excellent. That's good. And very dark.
Well, you never know.
And then the last piece is just, again, I keep showing you this, but, you know, we're making, these are the big things we're working, you know, the committee and we're working on together this fall and on schedule, on time, and making lots of progress on
Put a
it.
big check on that second one next time you put this up.
Yeah, so just, big things happening here, naming the school 10 zones, I mean, but really making progress is an important one, so.
Is there gonna be an electronic sign to the school down near the entrance? Must be, right? Or is it just
Not, it's nothing.
It's not part of the budget?
You mean like what we have outside the high school? I
Was it part of the
honestly,
project?
I honestly don't know. We can find out.
That's been there.
Well, I do know at West Parish, remember we had this name on the school and then they have a sign down forward.
So I mean the sign that introduces the school, not the one with, not the new school sign, the sign that you put up that the school committee just
No,
did
no, no.
this project.
No, I know what you're saying. You're saying as you enter,
Yeah.
it says, well,
The electronic sign,
Get some
with messages on
announcements,
it.
yeah, like happy birthday.
Yeah, whatever,
Or,
that sign.
A permanent sign, is that what you're
It's
saying?
permanent, yeah.
Like the
I
high
just-
school has here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just remember when we built the tech, we left that out and had to go back years later and do it, and it was very pricey, so just trying to
Yeah, I don't
see if
know.
we can look into those contingency
We'll have to
funds
see.
before they're spent
Yeah.
on the
We'll have to put
project.
it on somebody's mind.
Yeah,
Because I remember with West Parish, we talked about signage much later,
right,
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
it should be right now.
Right,
It was
yeah.
later.
well, like if you need electricity
School
to the sign, you know, that work that needs to get done. Just don't want to lose sight of that, because it's, it can-
We'll ask, I don't know, just. That's completes my report.
Excellent report. Next item of business is the Building and Finance Subcommittee meeting of August, no, it's not August, September 21st. Right, September 21.
So is mine. That's okay.
No, it does, I'm just correcting you. There was a meeting of September 21st, 2022. All the items underneath it were the business that was taken care of on September 21st, and Chairperson Melissa Prince will provide the report.
Give you a report as a highlight on the topics we spoke about, so there's a lot of work done. So we started off our meeting, and attendance was Kathy, Bill, Melvin, and I on the subcommittee. And we received the CFO's monthly report, which had a lot of information. The first topic was talking about our budget. As you know, our budget started off this year at almost 47 million. And we looked at the actual expenditures to date and what we anticipate to expend, and that what a projected balance would be at the end of the year, which came in at about 1.5 million. However, I don't want anyone to get excited about that because it's only the first month of the budget, and as we know, a lot can happen between now and June. Students come in, things change, cost of living goes up, so, but as it stands right now, we are in great shape with our general fund budget. Then we looked at our ESSA 2 and ESSA 3 update, and that budget was almost $2 million. And we discussed how that money is being spent, which has been reported out, but we just saw the actual expenditures so far to date, which is a majority of that money, which is over $1 million. And just know that we anticipate to spend all that money in that budget, otherwise we would likely need it. So, but it's going to furniture, clerical salaries, services and things like that. The ESSA 3 budget, the same way, started off around 4.5 million and projected to spend the majority of that. And this is the budget that the playgrounds are coming out of. We have contract cleaning, and we also have a lot of clerical positions in that budget as well. But we are, Gary has been very detailed in his spending and gave a great report, and we are in a good place with our budget. We also talked about the work order tickets that go into the DPW. Happy to report that out of 126 tickets submitted to the DPW, 84% of those tickets were closed within 1 week. So talk about having a dynamic DPW that is on the ball. I mean, to have that type of reaction and items getting fixed and improved is just excellent work. And a great collaboration between the schools and the DPW. So praise the DPW whenever you get that chance, because they're doing well. We broke down those tickets, 37 of the 126 tickets were about building and grounds, 19 of them was electrical. I know that we, I think, have one electrician in the city, so he's working as hard as he can. 12 HVAC repairs, 45 maintenance, and 13 plumbing requests. So we are very good at getting detailed in seeing what is actually being reported and what is being addressed, and have that data, which is very helpful when we look at our budget and where to spend our money and where to, how to react to the DPW. So it's all good. We also talked about, we have a couple new hires. I think that was brought up at a superintendent's report recently, mostly in our business office. So we discussed those hires and how they are in place and working well, with the exception of one that is, I don't know.
Director of Finance.
Director of Finance, I didn't really get an update from you, so I'm assuming nothing has happened since the.
It's just not, we're just waiting to sign a contract.
Okay, so there's someone identified, and hopefully we'll hear that announcement soon. In addition, we, school committee compensation. It was referred to BNF, and this group, I don't know that Bill was there for this conversation, but let me hand this out, because it's a document that, well, you've seen it, well, Laura hasn't seen it. So this is a document that we looked at. We're talking about potentially increasing our school committee salary, which is currently $5,000 per year.
You want me to show it?
If you have it,
And then also some key.
okay,
If you just keep going, I'll get there.
okay. So what this document that is being circulated right now is work that was done by the city clerk, who forwarded to me when I asked her about city council salaries and how that process worked when they increased theirs a few years back. And that office has done some work and some outreach to some communities. They're not necessarily just our DOT communities like we usually expect to see when we're seeking information of what other communities are paying their city council members, their mayors, and their school committee members. So this was a document that we looked at to consider in our conversation. And as you can see by the document that we looked at, our $5,000 salary is pretty consistent. The average of most of the cities came to $5,967 for a school committee member, and when you look at those communities. So after a discussion, we thought it was a good idea to at least recognize that we have not seen a salary increase, I think, since 2000 saying that 2014.
It says on
No,
this document,
2001. 2001. So, and there wasn't a lot of interest to go to increase it drastically, as some communities have a higher amount. So the recommendation from the subcommittee was a motion to recommend to this committee to increase the salary by $500 a year, which would have a total school committee salary per person to be $5,500 per year. And I so move that vote to this group.
Oh, second.
But I want to kind of correct myself as I'm saying that motion, because that was a motion that came out of the subcommittee. However, if we are going to increase the salary, we have to do a motion to request to the city council to increase it, because it's the city council that has the authority to increase our salaries. So probably we'll do two motions. One, if we do approve this tonight, act on this motion, and then maybe do a motion to recommend it to the city
A
council.
motion to send it to the city.
Yeah. So it's actually gonna need two votes. So I guess I would just ask if there's any questions or concerns.
Couldn't be put into one, no, I see what
We have to decide if we want to do it first as a group.
Yep.
And then if we do, that's the second part of it. Yep.
So, so it's a tricky question. I mean, I guess what I'm thinking about is looking at this list. I mean, I'm looking at Salem because I know they're one of our DART districts.
Yep.
And I can't tell offhand if I see other, I don't think I see.
Peabody
Peabody
is,
is DART
Peabody
district?
is. Gary, people, the DART districts and what?
I know, it's so small, I
Yeah,
apologize, I
okay.
should have.
Peabody, I see.
On the screen,
It's still a little bit tricky, but, so those are our two DART districts that are on here.
I think that's right. Gary, check.
Yeah.
I think it's just those two, I think I looked that up.
Okay, it's just striking, to be honest, how much larger, how much higher Salem's is.
Yeah.
And so my two questions are this: have we looked at the impact on the school's budget of different numbers?
Well, we know what the impact would be for six, it would be a $3,000
$3,000.
hit for six. I don't know, I can't remember if the mayor gets an extra stipend or if it's involved in his salary, not that I'm unaware of.
Okay. And then, just as and have we thought about, or I don't know if there's research on, you guys have done so much work, so on what it means to attracting people to run for school committee. Given how much work this has become, if this has a significant impact on encouraging people to run for school committee.
Are you saying because the number is low that it has an effect, or that?
No, I'm asking if there's any data on whether increasing it encourages
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
significant time.
I know there are communities that are, there's no pay. It's no pay. And they get people to run.
And I'm gonna bring up a point too, so a couple of things on this, are you done? Sorry.
I was also
Go ahead.
ready to make a point that this would not impact this particular committee. This does not become effective until after the next election. Right.
So I'm just gonna put my perspective out there, as far as what your specific. So Kathy brought up a good point, is there, when I went to Hyannis, the many years that I go every year, I talked to many members that don't get a salary at all. One of the benefits of Gloucester with this $5,000, and I don't know if this is the case in every district, right? One, it's pensionable, so if you're here more than 10 years, you get a pension. And two, the ability to get the health insurance is what most communities don't get, so while you might say that a $5,000 salary is low, I can assure you those that get health insurance are getting much more than a $5,000 benefit per year. If you look at the cost of a family plan, it's thousands, right? So knowing that that is part of now as a group here and what we do for our work versus low, high pay, I felt comfortable with the 500, knowing that I think there is definitely already an attraction in Gloucester to run the school committee because of the health insurance alone, which isn't offered in every other district. And this one won't state that, but
I also, I've never had anybody ask me anything about salary. When they've been curious about running. It's never.
I don't think people have any idea.
Yeah, it just
I
hasn't come
do,
up.
as the newest member of the bill. There's no information about it, frankly, so. What does it say?
Yeah, and it's not something that you think about, like if you run a school committee, you're not like, wow, what is the pay on that? Kind of like coaching, you're just kind of like, yeah, because I don't want to do it.
you're a public servant.
Just a question.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Sorry, just to interject, sorry. Yes, Salem, Leominster, and Peabody are all just DART districts.
Leominster is too?
Leominster as well, yeah, exactly. And in terms of the
That's
vote,
new?
for the, they change every few years, but
Okay.
like all during last year when you were showing your comparisons, Leominster was in there as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just thought it was kind of funny because when I first decided to run for school committee, I was led to believe by someone that it was not a paid position. So like I was even elected and didn't realize I was getting anything. But I just think that was kind of funny. But I don't know.
I view this as, I mean, I know. Keith, are you done?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, as far as like incentive, it didn't enter my calculus as far as like it being an incentive. I didn't realize I would get anything, but I'm happy to get something, honestly. And you know, a 1% raise, you know, I could certainly use that myself personally. So I'd be happy for that.
And for what it's worth, and obviously, Cambridge pays members tens of thousands plus healthcare benefits. And while they have more people running here, it's not like lots and lots. It's not like 8 or 9 at any given race. So it's not like even at that salary, which is a significant salary, it's not like dozens or that. In terms of, because you were asking,
No, it's good
does
to
it
know.
increase?
No, it's good to know.
That's an example of one. But it's a very high salary. It's the highest in the state by far.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And what's, our city council salary is 11.5, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I
felt that that was the maximum I would be comfortable suggesting and considering, quite honestly, particularly given the concentration of this data. So you have to take away Waltham, which has a very high pay. And I think of Salem as having kind of an outlier pay. Everybody else is pretty concentrated in the 3 to 5-ish pay. So I think we thought a recommendation that this would start a discussion as a starting point, but I believe I commented that that's a starting point, that's my highest starting point, not my lowest starting point. I'd be quite comfortable if it was less.
So to your point, Melissa, do we know what schools, which of these communities also offer the health insurance benefit?
No, I didn't do that out. This is the outreach I did.
It does say benefits there on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some say yes,
I would assume that's.
Yeah, I assume that's health insurance.
Yeah.
some say yes. And they have a minimum.
And Salem does not. And Leominster does not.
It would almost make sense to compare benefited committee members and take that average. You know,
Looks like we're pretty close to Northampton, but
One thing that I felt comfortable with is when you look at Peabody, I always go to Peabody for some reason, mostly because a few years before we started building new schools, our footprint was the same as Peabody. They had 5 elementary schools, we had 5, so their footprint is very similar to ours. But they do have more kids.
Interesting.
If you look at population.
Yeah.
Our population is lower than the other communities. I mean, I see the $500 increase as a recognition that we address the issue instead of it being said that we've never discussed it too. You know, it's kind of like we discussed it and this is where at least the subcommittee felt comfortable. But it's open for discussion. I mean, that's the recommendation from the DNF, but there can always be another recommendation for consideration while we're considering this motion.
Yeah, I don't have another recommendation. I'm actually coming from when the mayor first brought this up. That was the first I heard of this. And he
actually, I don't want to speak for him, but my understanding was that because it hadn't gone up since 2001, my sense was that he felt that was a significant amount of time for that not to have happened, given that in this city, the city council has gone up periodically within that time. So I'm just coming from how I first learned about this as an issue. I don't have another thing to offer because I don't have any more data.
And I can say, Laura, I was with you when this topic first came up. I'm like, okay, where are we going with this, right?
Right.
But then when I saw this information, I'm like,
Right.
okay, this is where we're going with
Right,
it. You know what I
no,
mean?
exactly.
So
Yeah, this is the
I-
first I'm seeing.
if I had seen a lot more in other communities, I'd be like, wow, we're low, right? But we can't say that we're low.
Right.
You know, and that's how we approach our
Right.
negotiations with our staff.
Right.
So I see this as that same approach.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be able to be said any longer that we haven't addressed this issue since 2001.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with saying, okay, it's been discussed, addressed, and we're not gonna move on. You know, we'll table it until next year. I'm not-
Well, we
I'm
have
not
to do
like-
in a year that we're not, like, this, like, it can't benefit us
Oh,
as a
right,
group,
right,
it's for
right.
the
It's
next
gonna-
group
it's for
coming
the next
in.
group,
So
yeah.
this is the time frame to do it, for the next election.
Well, a year and a quarter from now.
Yeah.
So the next election for us, I mean, the next school committee, this doesn't impact us, it's that if we're on it, the next school.
And if when the next school committee is elected on day one, if they were to say, hey, we're gonna move forward with it, that wouldn't impact, but it wouldn't impact them. They would sit there for another
They
2
can't
years.
vote on it when it
Yeah,
impacts
yeah.
them.
I am motioning I'm motioning to table only because looking at the numbers, I'm like, I'm fine, health insurance and, you know, to Laura's point, it was the mayor that originally is, to my recollection, was, you know, the one that brought it up. I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but at this, we're pretty much in line, we get benefits, I'm not like, well, that's a deal breaker for me, I'm just not thinking along those lines, but I'm also totally fine if the council decides to, or the school committee decides. But that's the direction we want to go, $500 increase. Not in it thinking I'm gonna get rich on the school committee.
We have a motion on the table to increase 500.
Was that
It was seconded, yeah.
You voting on the motion? I guess I might have a question to the chair. Just with Samantha and Greg gone. I know we have a quorum, so we can vote. Does that create any issue? No, okay. No. Okay. I think I move this forward.
Move the vote.
I move the vote. So let's say, ready?
I was gonna,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna make an amendment that we leave our salary the way it is. That we do not go for an increase.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I don't know if that's a motion, like,
Okay.
so I would need a second. Anybody, a second?
So I just want to be clear on procedurally. Sounded like I seconded a motion to push it forward.
No,
You second for discussion.
you put it on the table.
You're-
There's a
you're
motion on the
seconding-
table.
Yeah, your seconding doesn't mean you're in favor or against, it
Okay.
just means you think it's worth discussing.
Okay, and now you are saying you're an amendment to,
So I don't know that you're amending it, but you're changing the whole motion. So that's not an amendment to the motion. That's, now we vote on this motion and you can vote whatever way you're thinking by amending that. You're not adding to this motion, amending to it, it's changing the whole
Okay, so I can
dynamics of
vote the
it.
way I want to
You
vote.
vote the way you want to vote.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I mean, yeah, right.
So forget that I said that because I didn't get second.
Well, I was willing to second it, I just didn't.
Are we ready to vote now?
Yeah, just for clarity, we're voting on
$500 increase.
the $500 increase, which is really, and then we'll have to take a second vote, push it to the city council.
Exactly.
Are you ready? Take this topic.
It's just an uncomfortable topic.
It's a terrible topic.
But
Terrible.
remember, it's not for us.
Oh,
It's
right.
only if you get elected again. Well, thank but I'm just reminding the public, we're not voting ourselves in
Yeah.
raises right now. We're voting a raise for the
That's the way
next
it'll
coming
be read.
school committee.
That's the way it'll be reported, but
After they get those big winter electric and gas bills,
yeah.
the rest of the world.
Ready, we're ready.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. And Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
So now we can change that bottom number to, this has been voted since 2000. So I'm gonna make a motion that we recommend to the city council pursuant to the charter and Mass General Law, chapter 71, and I forget the exact section, but that's not it. That the city council approve our salary increase of $500 per year to be a total of $5,500. Effective the next incoming school committee.
January 1st. whatever that is.
2024. Second.
Okay.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Prince,
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
That might be the most uncomfortable vote I've ever
I agree, and I've been here a long time.
Not for me.
done.
And Maria, know that I will give you that Mass General Law chapter number. I just have 4 different laws with me right now, and I can't figure out which one was for the city council to increase our salary.
All right, and how does this get to the city council?
We,
Through the CFO? Through the CFO? Does he bring it to the city?
From the chair to the
to the
president.
yeah.
Coincidentally, they know each other very well.
Okay.
Could be a text, a phone call.
But make it official with an email.
I can't find it. I had too many on here. Okay, on with my report. I will get that information to you, Maria.
Okay.
The next order of business that we discussed at our meeting, which there will be lots of action on tonight, is the building use policy, procedure, and fees that are included in your packets. It's file KF. And this is a policy that required some updating just because we haven't reviewed this policy in many years. I don't know the date on this one was 2018, I think we looked at it before. But since then, we've had different types of requests for using our school facilities, which prompted a conversation. This subcommittee met 4 times, if not 5, I believe, to discuss the policy and procedures. And I just want to start by saying the tremendous work that was done by administration through Gary and Superintendent Lummis was extremely helpful as they made recommendations as we went through these documents. I know for me, meeting with the DPW in the beginning to find out what was actually happening then and where improvements needed to be made was helpful. And I think through these policies and procedures, we are opening up that conversation in a very fluid way. There's a good conduit from between the schools and the DPW when it comes to renting, which is obviously needed since we rely on the DPW staff to be in-house when we do rent our facilities. So without saying much more, other than this was a very good topic of discussion, a lot of input was made by all subcommittee members and administration. This was what we came up to be our best response to modifying the current file of KF and KF-R, which is the procedures, and then in addition, we created the building use fees. So how would you like to proceed with this, Madam Chairperson? Well, do you want to read them into the record? Do you want?
Would it be helpful if I just sort of summarize
You
the
could summarize,
changes
yeah.
for the?
That'd be
Okay. So, on both the policy KF and procedures KFR, we're sort of coming at from a few different goals. One, make it clearer in terms of the process, okay? Also make it clearer to the folks that's oriented who want to use the buildings, a few stipulations around care, around proper use, around charges, or what happens if they don't use it properly, so like not being a friend again. We also looked at things like increasing the liability coverage as well, to make those things clearer. And the other piece is we probably the largest change is for larger groups, and then also folks who are non-school, non-municipal. That's what we call category C. That they would come to the building finance committee, and the building fund. BNF would review those, with the superintendent. And so we've actually done that with the first one last week, know it very well, and very helpful in terms of just because those are the ones, especially the larger ones, that they're atypical, first of all, there are not too many of those, but could produce the most significant sort of wear and tear. But also trying to reaffirm that using our, especially our, youth groups, school groups, PTO groups, that sort of thing. Municipal uses are priority and important. I just want to make sure that clear process, it's a thorough process, and sort of adding some things that weren't really in there. So about you see the timelines change, you see some requirements around use change, and also adaptation change a little bit, and also be more clear as to the process.
And one other piece was making sure people don't represent that our schools are their place of business.
And part of that was that it's not considered a permanent home for them. It's still business, right?
And another, just to add on to that, piggyback on that, is having the discrimination language added. Not only we cannot discriminate in who we allow to use our facilities, but also there's a nice expectation in this policy that those who use our facilities will recognize our policies on that topic as well.
So there's a couple things I went through. You guys did amazing work here. So in KF, when we talk about they won't have undue impact on the condition of the facilities, I wondered if
Can you just point out which paragraph?
sorry, it's the first graph of the policy. So let's see, community use policy graph one.
It's the last sentence. We'll not have an impact on it.
Right, but actually now that I look ahead, so I was gonna say, or on the neighbors or neighborhood, I see you have above, it won't cause public disturbances. I just wasn't sure if we wanted to say would not have undue impact on the condition of the facilities or the neighborhoods. And by that I meant, cars loitering at the entrance or, I don't know. But just thinking about our relationships of our schools with our neighbors.
I think that cause public
Yeah,
disturbances covers that.
Yeah.
Okay, that may cover that. Then under supervision.
Is this in the same policy?
well,
KFR or KF?
It must be in KF, yeah, supervision.
Which is section 3, page 2.
Correct, thank you, sorry. they were responsible for any damage to the building or equipment. I didn't see anything, and I could have missed it, any reference to cleanup.
Custodians.
But custodians clean the building, but I'm saying as far as their materials, leaving materials
I
behind.
thought we addressed that.
So,
I think it's in the quote.
Okay, I didn't see it, so I just, there may be,
So they're not allowed to store anything or keep anything there. I just want to look at.
We discussed that.
right, no, I'm sure, it's just like if they leave, papers strewn about, or spill things, or, like, certainly is because,
So, C, so on the top of the page, which is still highlighted, I think it's changed.
okay,
It's the last sentence, facility should be left in the same page in which they were found.
okay, all right, so that covers it.
The intent, that conversation was held.
Yeah, I'm
Do you know what I mean? So it's embedded into.
Okay, it's embedded. There were so many pages and I couldn't print them, so.
Get it.
Okay, then under 4, under the fees, I'm thinking about category B.
Can we do fees and we get
Oh,
the fees?
okay, sorry.
Like work one policy at a time, you know what I mean? Let's see.
Yeah, I just-
Get through this and then go through this. Or
Okay,
you have
that's,
to say impact the policy?
no, I don't think it does. Then my last 2 things tell me if they're liability.
That's in there, that's in the, it's in there somewhere about that.
Yeah, no,
They
I
have to
saw
have
that. I saw that in there. I guess my question for category B, and I'm thinking sort of like scouts is what I'm sort of
Right.
using as my like local Boy and Girl Scouts. Are they able to afford that kind of thing? Like, would a scout troop that wanted to rent be able to have a certificate of liability for $1 million? I mean, would that make it out of their reach to be in our buildings?
So I would say, speaking to liability, it's very common to see that in other policies.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I know those numbers sound big, but I don't know that a policy costs that.
No,
that
of
much,
course
you
it
know what I
doesn't.
mean? So, but I know it sounds expensive.
No,
right?
I know it doesn't cost that. I don't know what it costs. I know, but it may cost $150 to $200.
Yeah, I mean, I have to carry insurance for like the girls' travel basketball.
Right.
It's 50 girls. Runs through, it covers me from December 1st to December 1st. I think it was like $350.
Okay, so maybe, okay, I'm just asking the question, because
And it's something that they very likely, and you don't get that because you're using the buildings, you get to have that.
I need
right, no, that would be,
So it's something that already, especially one serving youth who travel, scouts travel as well.
right,
Like camping.
absolutely,
Probably all already most of it has.
absolutely. Okay, and then the last thing was, which is in, I think, R, AFR. You referred to it. So it's 1A and then 1B. So the different amount of time of calendar days of the
That was intentional.
so, right, so it's 14 calendar days for schoolwork, so for A and B, basically, for categories A and B. And then it's 45 calendar days for category C.
Yeah, that's right.
And the reason for that is because it's very likely that if you're in category C, you're coming before a B and F subcommittee.
Right.
And we want to make sure that it fit into the calendar, and usually it's for a larger group or something. We can look at all the
Right.
concerns addressed for that.
Okay,
So
great.
that was intentional.
So that, other than the fees, that was it. Thank you.
So I know when we get to the procedures, I'm gonna request a change, but I'm gonna, wait till we get there. So right now.
You're gonna request a change?
Well,
on
I'm
the
just a
fees?
clarification, no, not on the fees. On the procedures, I just noticed something that I didn't pick up on when we were talking about it. It's
Yeah.
nothing major, it's just a kind of contradiction, but nothing we can't fix tonight. But, I'm just wondering if we feel comfortable approving this policy, right? One of 3 documents to approve, maybe tonight. If not, we'll go back to the table. So that's how I'm looking at the process going forward. So those concerns you brought up, yeah.
Just one last question. So under availability of use.
Yeah.
So I see July and August, at play times when
When the procedure,
She's overseas.
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Um,
July and August, Sundays and school vacation weeks.
so what we're saying is that these are times when the buildings may not be available.
Exactly. And when we met with DPW, it was very clear to them, July and August is when they're getting schools ready for open and doing all their work. Sundays, it's often difficult to get a custodian, but not impossible, so we just listed that. And then school vacation weeks are usually, some work by DPW, and I believe the school may use them for during.
So we're not saying we won't,
Right, but those are different.
we're letting people know that those are more difficult, maybe.
Just giving them notice. So I'm just wondering if we're ready. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get cues.
I was just trying to.
Of course, that's what we do. That's why
Right.
you come out of subcommittee and now it's have a further review at the full committee. And we can always make changes. That's the purpose of the conversation.
Yeah, I just realized that I need to be careful about even talking about it, because I run something like the Scouts or something, you know, and so I don't know whether I should.
You don't have a financial interest.
Right, so you can declare that you may have a potential conflict of interest, but that you feel comfortable voting or don't feel comfortable voting, depends which way you want to go. Because you believe that you don't have a financial interest in this, you, Bill Melvin as a person, or that you may feel you have one and you don't want to vote, so, you can- declaration. It's a conflict of interest, I think it's 260.
You use the building to your regular.
Yeah.
So. Better safe than sorry.
But know that, that could be just to the fees,
Yeah, that
and
can
not
be
the
just.
policy and procedures.
That's also very important. I mean, that's.
Yeah, my concern is the fees, and
That's right.
I don't, we're gonna do the policy, I'm totally fine. It's
So abstaining is an option there.
What's that,
Abstaining is an option.
on
On the
fees.
voting on the policy or voting on the fees?
Just these.
Okay. And if I have comments about that, or I don't share those, I just abstain. Correct. I should have made the comments in the past.
Usually you're abstaining from the conversation.
Yeah, I think you should. So essentially not participate in that part of the conversation.
The fees part.
Right, because just to be transparent here, then you proceed as trying to influence the decision.
What impacts your organization?
Yeah. it impacts your organization.
So you would recuse yourself from the conversation.
That should be also present, which is a way of abstaining.
Yeah.
It's usually you do, I'm trying to look at that. 268A, it's under Mass General Law, General Law is 268A. Make your declaration.
Meaning if you wanted to partake, if you wanted.
No, when it comes to a vote, like you could even say now, right? I, Bill Melvin, because of my work with the youth in the city and the use of our facilities, want to declare that this may appear as a conflict of interest in A. And with that being said, I choose to vote or abstain in these matters. And he can say, I'm going to choose to vote on the policy and procedures, but abstain from the fees. Or he can abstain from the whole conversation, or whatever he wants to do, but putting it on record that it could appear that you have a conflict of interest is what's important. It's not like you went forward and did it and then say, yeah, I got to vote on something that impacts me. It's for public
Yeah.
notice.
I get that. Okay, I think I understand. I do understand, and I fine, just voting present.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the community use of school facilities file KF as amended and presented tonight.
Was it amended tonight?
Well, to be clear, like, we're not creating a new policy, we're amending the one that was there before. So we're not amending what's before us tonight, we're amending what is already in existence.
Okay.
I can say I move to approve the updated community use of school facilities file, yeah, that makes more sense. Revised. Not a good word.
Okay, any discussion? I see nobody else. I'm just gonna state that I'm happy we reviewed the policy. I'm glad we reaffirmed that our buildings are for the community use. They're paid for by members of this great city. And I am always happy to see our buildings enjoyed in a responsible manner. I love to see the life at our schools after hours and on the weekends. I've been to different events where, kids come through and they're thrilled, and having that opportunity where they would not otherwise have, because there's no other facilities that would be appropriate. So I'm happy when people want to use our schools, because I think it also further builds community and belonging in our schools. All right, Maria, we can vote.
Mr. Bowman,
Present.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. And
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Nice and safe. Okay, so the next document before us is the community use of school facilities. Sorry, I'm reading wrong, because I have 5 different copies of everything. Community use of school facilities procedures, file KF-R. And my question that I wanted to ask was, in number 1A, it states, the policy says that it goes from principal directly to DPW. Oh, wait, and superintendent, hang on, hold on. The policy says that, that's what it was, sorry. Let me just go back to this, I know I wrote it over here. Applications must be approved by the principal of the building. Applications approved by the principal must be forwarded to the Department of Public Works, right? So we said that in the policy. But then in the procedures, we involve you, and I'm not,
Well, we, in the policy do as well, but it's after DPW.
it's after.
Right.
Right, and then, so I just want to clarify whatever way it's gonna
Yeah,
be,
no, I think that's a good catch.
not trying to create anything other than being consistent.
So I think one way we could do this. You could take out on 1A. You could take out superintendent, or you could, I prefer to building principal, comma, the superintendent or designate. Or you could put it all in there, because there's sometimes where they're gonna. Right, or not, they always go to building principal. Yeah.
Building principal.
Yeah, okay, so I think you say building principal or designee.
Don't you want to be involved in that?
I don't need to be involved in the first step.
Okay.
The first step, what we laid out in the policy we just proved is the right approach. Building principal, DPW says, yes, we can do something about that, comes to me for final approval.
Right, but the policy, I think, says it in a way that is intended, which is it goes to the principal.
Yeah,
The principal sends it to
but then-
DPW
I'm saying
versus
the policy is correct.
yeah,
I
versus
think you're right.
procedures. We don't want to say they need to submit to DPW. We just probably want to say
It's the building principal.
that it gets,
Right.
yes, this is about submission. This
Right,
isn't
it says
about-
it's going to all 3, or. Yeah, so please submit it to the building principal and the superintendent.
Yes.
So we need to take out and the superintendent because it's not being submitted to you.
Exactly right. I mean, yes, I agree.
Okay, that's what it was.
And then the same thing in 1B.
starts the clock. So, yeah. Get them in, taking out and the superintendent.
Or deputy.
Well, it can be,
Because it's just going to the building, that's all. That's what the policy says. Oh, and then the only other information,
Yep.
let me just get to D first. Availability, so under 2D, requests for the use of school facilities must be submitted to the building principal at least 14 days prior to the date. So should we put 14/45? It depends on.
This was meant to be taken out because we moved it up to 1A.
Okay, so that's not even.
Yeah, so we'll
in
take out,
existence,
we'll
okay.
take out 2D, which is because it's redundant.
Okay, so take that out, and then it's kind of incomplete because we don't have the capacities for the schools listed.
We can have those.
So we'll have to add those after the fact. And I just want to point out that one clear directive that's coming out of this policy is that elementary classrooms will not be used, only the arts or music classrooms will be used. And if they need a classroom, they can come to the high school or the elementary, the middle schools.
I got one change. Number 4,
Yeah.
fees, 4A and 4B should just be flip-flopped. So 4B should be 4A and 4A should be 4B. It would read better.
Okay. And then my other question is, are we expecting all school groups and youth groups to pay a $50 application fee?
I think.
That was one of my.
Yeah, it maybe it, yeah, so I don't think so.
So just say group C.
I mean, I don't, I'm not a group A. There are costs to processing all this.
Okay,
It's a
so
lot of
group
processing.
B and C, that's what you're
Yeah,
recommending?
I would recommend yes.
So that was my question about fees.
Okay.
The application fee would be non-refundable for category B.
Category B and C.
Right, again, for groups that, I guess for B, just thinking this through, which are sort of, in a more likely to be granted given time and space. I'm just thinking of like low income, low, little cash groups. Who for whom a $50 non-refundable fee, if they're not able to use the facility, could be a big.
So I would refer to, when you look in your building fees, because we discussed this, and we discussed how groups charge fees per student, and that's, I mean, when, I think Kathy brought it up, when you sign your child up for a to be membership, the parent expects that money to be used towards things like that.
Okay.
So, but I also want to point out that in the fees, I think it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, that it mentions if you feel you can apply for some sort of waiver of low income is in there as well.
Okay.
So if someone feels that they absolutely can't afford it under any condition.
I was just thinking about the non-refundable application fee.
Yeah, we talked about that and how there is a cost to.
Right, well, Ben just said that there's a cost to this process.
But I'm just
so,
trying to
okay.
find that language.
Let's find it.
This one, the application fee, it's 4D. Okay, it's-
No,
It's not, that's not in the fees. I don't-
right here, any group requesting a waiver or reduced rate due to financial hardship, so there's an
Okay.
expectation that there's something there.
Okay, just
That
in case.
there's a
Right, okay,
discretion there
right.
that can be used.
That's all.
there any other? So many copies of this policy. I have to put it together. So from what I see, we changed is we're flipping A and B with the fees, and Maria, this, I guess is geared towards you. Adding categories B and C to letter 4D. And then
Spelled out.
spelled out, yeah. What?
The application fee
Yep,
is for B and C.
yep, categories B and C. And then, taking out 4D, I mean, I'm sorry, 2D. Being removed. And then taking out, under 1A and 1B, taking out superintendent or designate.
So,
And then knowing we'll have to add in a motion that this will be filled in, get that information via maximum capacity.
so my only question, suggestion is, we're taking out 2D, but I like the sentence that I think should go above about timing of submission, which says this ensures the appropriate processing of the application and adequate coverage for the event.
Right, which for some reason we took out a 1B, which I get 1A and 1B. Because if you look at the bottom of 1B, that's there, but
It's there,
deleted for some reason.
right?
I just can't remember. But we can put it back in there and also for
1A, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so we're moving that sentence, last sentence of 2D, adding it to 1A and 1B. Any other? I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the community use of schools facilities procedures file K-App-R with the amendments made tonight, knowing that the administration will fill in the capacity limits under 3D when that information is contained.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Any discussion? Okay,
Can I ask a quick question about audio equipment and the like?
Yep,
If somebody's bringing in their own equipment, I see that it's obvious that our own technicians would want to run our own equipment, but if they bring in their own equipment, is that still required?
I
Like
guess.
maybe the gymnasium or that's an athletic facility, but there might be a situation where they bring in their own sound reinforcement, for instance.
I think it depends on whether or not that, like, for instance, that's being hooked into our own system. Okay, if it's separate standalone amplifiers, probably okay, but I think we would definitely also have concern on that. We have to work with the group because our electrical, like, if you did that at Beaman, that probably would blow up the building. Okay, no, okay, that's an exaggeration.
No, but it could,
But it would, the electrical service at Beaman is just very old and probably can't tolerate some things, right? So, but no, I think it would stand alone, and that, that's, Maria, have we had this situation in the past?
Nobody rents from us.
we have.
Probably have, right? Yeah. But that's, and then
Like
we
for,
would work with the, like, for example, that would be laid out, that'd be explained on the building use application. And then we would work with that group to make sure that either we had the right technician and or they were doing it in a way that wouldn't harm the building.
yeah, and so that, it's kind of addressed a little bit in the fee schedule too, as a footnote.
Where it says, if additional personnel are required, the fee will be determined at the time. And I mean, it has the technical assistance, which is a teacher student, that's for audio and visual. But then also if we needed that additional piece.
Any other questions or discussions? No? Where we have to roll call vote?
Mr. Melvin,
Present.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes,
Ms. Weason. Yes. And Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
excellent. On to the fees. We had a discussion regarding fees and decided to, at the recommendation of administration, come up with 3 separate groups. Clearly, it was a difficult conversation when we are trying to determine how to categorize, to try to define those lines was very difficult. There was a soft spot for the Girl Scouts, and I think we even discussed not changing their fee this year because they're probably already under agreement, and we'll do it next year. That way they have a notice of it, as opposed to implementing it immediately. But at the same time, realize that we can't just pick and choose certain groups that we may feel may not be as profitable. And that we had to draw these lines in the way that they are presented tonight, as far as, are you school or are you youth? And related to Gloucester in some capacity, or are you not? That was the best way, otherwise we would have additional groups and it could get more complicated. So we tried to have the simplest lines drawn, knowing that there'll be struggles with some. That have the language in the procedures to have that discretion with the superintendent feels it's important. So,
And I believe historically, we always had language that said the superintendent may make the decision to waive fees. So I think that paragraph kind of allows that conversation to happen.
Yeah, just to say, as you said, I think it is important that people use our buildings, especially, youth groups, especially students and families who are in our schools. After school, other positive, this feels significant.
Look at the fees. There was some set before our conversation, and they've gone up anywhere from $5 to $10 per hour. So it's not really excessive. We went down. If you look at the custodial fees, those went down. It was $40, and we thought it was going to have to go up higher, but then we realized it didn't. So
Yeah.
a
From
lot.
my perspective, as long as the superintendent has discretion, I feel confident.
Yeah, this is going to be a live document that gets reviewed.
The fees get reviewed every
Fees,
year.
yeah, fees annually, so we can take into account if we feel like that there's been a loss because of fees, then we'll talk about it the next session.
The group A includes all school related. Yeah, anything, yeah.
Keith, did you have any questions before we move forward?
No, not right now.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the building use fee schedule for 2022 to 2023 as presented. Any further discussion?
Oh, any further discussion? Sorry. I'm writing a note to myself
That's
to
okay.
remind me to do something regarding this.
Roll call vote, Maria? Mr. Melvin?
Present.
Mr. Minio?
Yes.
Ms. Prince?
Yes.
Ms. Beeson? Yes. And Chairperson Clancy?
Yes.
And I don't know, was this motion on the agenda?
Yeah. Always do.
Yeah, okay, I didn't look.
Yeah.
No, I,
We're going to use policy, fees, and procedure, all there.
no, there was another motion to approve the Gloucester 400 that we did at the subcommittee level.
Oh, I thought.
I thought we didn't have to bring those.
We're not gonna bring it here.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to be clear, because it came on my action list from Maria, so I just want to make sure that
All right.
we're covered. So with that being said, to conclude my report, I'm gonna add that, which we'll do in the future, the BNF subcommittee reviewed an application for a rental for the Gloucester 400 that is gonna happen in January. So we had a introductory conversation and kind of gave a nod that we want to move forward with this, but know that there's a lot more information for us to consider once it's presented to us. So we're on a path of approval, I would say, for the Gloucester 400. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good work.
We have one more item of action, which is approval and acceptance of the Gloucester Education Foundation grants. Number one, $6,000 for annual approval of rollover funding for Gloucester High School summer advanced placement classes. And number two, $13,100 for annual approval of rollover funding for grades 4 to 8 program. And I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Maria, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince. Yes. Ms. Weason. Yes. And Chairperson Clancy.
Yes. And I think I just want to highlight, I assume that 13,000 is for music instruction. But great. It's have the access to, knowing that I went to the concert of the younger musicians. It was really quite a filled stage. So there's a lot of interest, which is great.
Maybe a big stage.
Maybe a bigger stage. Wow.
Problematic.
Let's talk about that.
It's usually problematic.
Okay, so the last thing is discussion, or East Gloucester, the discussion and other communication. East Gloucester Veterans Memorial Skill Building, already done. And now we will be going into executive session for the following purposes, and we will return to open session to adjourn. Purpose one is to discuss a personnel contract pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A. And the second purpose is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Gloucester Teachers Association and the Gloucester Association of Education Paraprofessionals pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23B. And I support. Second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. And Chairperson Clancy.
Yes. Thank you, anyone in attendance, for sticking with us. Have a good evening, and we will only be coming out to adjourn.
I need to send you a Google Meet link, which I will do right now.
Will I need a special link?
Yep. We're
I
going to
forgot to ask about the special link.
Yep. Maria will send it to you.
I'm gonna
Okay.
email it to you.
I think we need to.
We have it.